And it's a privilege to come your way once again, each and every time on this podcast. My name is Peeman, and this is Speaking of God podcast, where we aim to change the narrative and bring God back into the conversation. And just like we always do, we always bring amazing guests. And today we are just happy to have one amazing guest with us. So I'm excited about this topic. In fact, I've been preparing the whole week for this. I don't know whether I'm well prepared for this, but it's going to be a great time for us to shoot out. But in case this is the first time you're viewing this episode, this is the season one of our podcast where we aim to speak to amazing guests and try to flesh out and get the treasures that are hidden in earthly vessels. So we are going to speak to many people and we are going to extract all that we can from there. But in case you haven't subscribed, you can look down there. We have the subscribe button below. So you can just subscribe, whether you are on Spotify or YouTube or whatever streaming platform that you will be listening from. This is the time for you to do justice and you can subscribe. So this is Speaking of God. My name is Peeman, and I'll be having a great discussion. Today, we have an amazing topic and I'm so excited. Guess what? It is law, biblical influence, justice, and God. And this is the time for us to come up and really review the influence of the Bible on our current law system that we have. And I brought the expert on the job for this. Trust me, my connections really work. And today I have a very great person that I'll be introducing to you. She is, first of all, one of the brightest and youngest lawyers that is coming up. She's literally the Esther of her time. And she's also one of the people that has great French influence. So in case you see my French coming up today, it's because I'm really connected to this. Also a cousin of mine, for those who don't know. So I'm very excited about this discussion. She's one of the most intelligent people that you could speak to on this subject. So today I have Olivia Mintah here with me. Olivia, you're welcome to today's podcast.
Thank you, Peeman. I'm so delighted to be here to give my knowledge to people on what's on the topic.
Yeah, and it's such a privilege. It's such a privilege to really have a because of the number of exams that law students have. So it's quite a privilege to really have her on this podcast. So Olivia, thank you for coming. And today we are going to have a great discussion. First of all, the people that are listening are just like me, and we all don't understand a lot of things about when people come up with the word law. It seems to be something that has its own definition, and people try to stay out each and every time. So, to you, what would be your take on what the law means, and don't we know that we should be knowing about even how laws are drafted in the first place?
Okay, so I think it's true. People hear law and then it becomes a whole gangantua word for the person. But to a law student, if I'm asked what law is, I would I would go into the jurisprudential analysis of law. So for law, as we see the Bible as our codified document that guides Christians, the law is also the embodiment of rules and regulations. When you talk about law, it's not such a big term that should scare you. Take it this way: it's like a combination or a collection of rules and regulations that is supposed to guide a particular society. So if we take Ghana, it's our customary laws, the laws we gain from the whites, and we have existing laws, and then we also have our constitution. So I think every Ghanaian should have the constitution of Ghana, the 1992 constitution. So if you go to Article 11 of the 1992 constitution of Ghana, it tells us where we can find our Ghanaian laws, or in what source can we say that now this is what we are relying on to say that this is Ghanaian law. So we have the constitution, that is the supreme the most important law. Let me put it this way: is the most important law of Ghana. So we have the constitution, we have enactments made in parliament. So when you vote your MPs to go to parliament, and then they start making laws, those laws are going to affect us because the constitution has given them the mandates, or the mandates to do so. And we have what we call the common law. The common law is what the judge made laws. Take it like that. So when you go to court and the judge, you bring an issue and the judge says, okay, looking at this, looking at the wisdom, look at all other factors, this is what this is our stand on this particular issue, then this thing becomes a law for us. So sometimes you see a lawyer saying that, oh, it has been said in this case before, this is the ruling of the courts. Do you get it? So that is also a law for Ghanaians. We also have, so I've made mention of a whole lot of things. So you take the constitution, is the supremacy law for us in Ghana, the 1992 constitution. Then we have the enactments, then we have the judge-made laws, then we have our customary laws. When you go to every community, they have their special laws. When you go to Ga, the Ga community, they have their special laws. When you go to the Fanti community, they have their special laws. So in making laws, these customary laws also contribute to it. It can be a source of law that you can go into. So in making of law, you talked about how the law is made. We already have the constitution that was made for us by our ancestors. Let's put it this way. So in further making law to suit the developing situations in our community, what we do is the executive presents the bill or drafts a bill to the parliament. And the parliament, through a process, Article 106 of the 1992 Constitution gives a process through which the parliament is supposed to go through in order to adopt or to accept that bill that has been brought. So let me make practical example. Let me give a practical example. You see the LGBTQ issues that are going on. So it's not just going to say, oh, we are going to prohibit people to do that. It has to go through a process, and that process is it has to go through the parliament. So if you would permit me, Article 106 of our constitution, one, it says the power of parliament to make laws shall be exercised by bills passed by parliament and assented to by president. No bill other than such a bill as is referred in paragraph A of Article 108 of this constitution shall be introduced to parliament unless it is accompanied by an explanatory memorandum setting out in detail the policy and principles of the bill, the defects of the existing law, the remedies proposed to deal with those defects, and the necessity for its introduction. And B, it has been published in the Gazette at least 14 days before the date of its introduction in Parliament. So because of time, I would want everyone to go and read Article 106. That's one way you can see how our Parliament bill draws up our laws or accepts our laws. So what I'm going to summarize it. What it's trying to say is that when a person brings the law, so let's say the LGBTQ is brought to Parliament goes on deliberations and accepts it, okay? And then if any law comes, you have to bring along with it an explanatory memorandum. That's, you just don't bring the law that let's prohibit this. Give us your reasons, give us what it's supposed to do. What is this law supposed to achieve? The purpose of it. And then with all that, the Parliament sits on it and adopts the law. That is, they accept it or not. Then later, if Parliament accepts the law, then the executive, that the president, now assent to it, and then it's gazetted. So that's basically the process that it has to go. That's why LGBTQ, you've heard a lot of it, but now it's still not passed. It has to go through a process. We don't just stand up and then make the laws. So I hope this is educative.
Absolutely, we've been quite introduced to a very wonderful part of what is our daily lives, but we don't really concentrate on. And thank you, Olivia, for letting us really know the various structures of the law, even knowing the different types of law, whether it's the customary law. I didn't even know that was part of the law. Different kinds of law that you really fleshed out. And for our international audience who seem to try to connect this, because the law system is very specific to different countries, whether you are in Bahamas, whether you are in UK, whether you are in US, there are different kinds of law that are specific to each region. But Olivia, from what you're saying, that means before a law is enacted, there must be a necessity for that law. From what you read, there is not just, it passes through a sort of procedure, as you stated from your article. We've seen the presidential system must have a veto, a way of making a decision on it. And it's not just even passing the law. There must be a necessity to the law. Isn't that right?
Yes, that is right. Because if you stand up and you say, I'm bringing this law alive. I'm bringing this rule to regulate something. It's definitely here to regulate a problem, right? Or it's definitely here for a purpose. So that's why you add your explanatory memorandum so that you can be able to explain or convince the parliamentarians, our MPs, that this thing is supposed to correct this defect. This law is supposed to help generate this. So we have tax law, for example. If government brings a law that we should be taxed or e-levy should be taxed, you have to give us reasons why you think that e-levy should be taxed. So if you heard through Ghana's parliamentary debates, you heard that they were trying to explain the fact that we need to raise our finances. We need they explain how it's going to help raise our financial status. So all these processes are explained so that we will know that this law that we are going to pass is not going to be just any silly law, to be precise. It's going to be useful, it's purposeful, because the law is supposed to serve or achieve a certain purpose.
Wow, that's definitely been a mind brightener. So we've really learned a lot in how even the law system in each country. I think this may be relevant and specific to a specific country, but it seems to be one of the frameworks which is common among different countries. So we are seeing, first of all, how the law system is actually developed. Different parties have to come together to really reach a consensus on it, whether it's the executive being, or what people call the presidential system, if I'm right, and
With the ministers.
And we having different parties coming together, legislature and all that. So it shows us the sort of high procedure that goes on when laws are being constructed. And also this shows us the relevance of laws within country, because this really is the framework and the foundation to every society. Today we've really been introduced to the way the law system is built up in every country. But most importantly, we'll be looking at how the Bible has really influenced laws in each country. I'm going to give a preview to this, and then Olivia will take over from since she's the expert in this field. I'm just trying to catch up here. So we see the Jewish people being given the 10 commandments as the framework from which they are supposed to obey all this. And fundamentally, the 10 commandment has served its purpose within multiple countries and the law system. Today we are going to find out definitely that was the way the law was given to the Jewish people, and it has streamlined to our end. Now we want to see how, from that core story of the 10 commandments being given out, how has the Bible really influenced even the drafting of laws and how laws have been built over the years?
I think we will have to quote where our 10 commandments is as Christians in the Bible.
Definitely, Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 to 7 has been very fundamental in many law systems across the world. Whether he said, "You shall not have a God before me," whether he's saying, "You shall not make for yourself an image," "You shall not misuse the name of the Lord." This seem to be quite a lot of religious laws that has been given. But we have some in verse 12 which says, "Honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony." Today, we are going to see some aspect of the 10 commandments which is implemented within various law systems. So we are going to restrict ourselves to the murder, adultery, what you do when you steal, and also giving false testimony. So I believe that these aspects are quite relevant in every law system, and we are going to flesh out how the law system that we currently have tackle each of these aspects. So it's going to be a great discussion. We'll move on to how does the 10 commandments influence most of the law systems that we have.
So the influence of our Bible in the laws of Ghana. So I don't know if you've taken our constitution, the 1990 constitution of Ghana. If you look at it, it even starts with, "In the name of the Almighty God." In the name of the Almighty God, we the people of Ghana. So we do, in my opinion, we do recognize this. So you can take your constitution and check that out. In the name of the Almighty God. So looking at the 10 commandments, we have the part that says, "Do not covet," right? Do not covet your neighbor's property. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife and all that. So covetion, do not covet. So if you come to our laws, they tell you that you have the right to own property. So if you go and you take someone's property, the law has a way to deal with you. If this is not yours, and you go and steal. Stealing is an offense in our criminal acts. Our criminal acts was made 1960. It's Act 29. So stealing, to me, stealing, you're coveting someone's property, right? And even the commandment says that shall not steal. So it has been codified in our criminal acts, Act 29. We also have that shall not murder. Section 46 of our criminal acts also prohibits murder. The criminal act is supposed to is a form of embodiment of a lot of prohibitions. So it prohibits taking one's life. So the Bible says that thou shalt not murder. Likewise, our criminal acts is against murderous acts. Man, if you can help me with some of the commandments, then we take it from there.
We take that few.
You should not commit adultery.
Yeah.
We'll do with that few. You should not commit adultery. Adultery, in a way, is one of the grounds for divorce. So it's being, to me, these things are being recognized in our constitutional dimension, in our laws here, in our laws. So these are few to mention.
Well, I just love the aspect that you spoke about, which is the fact that within the Ghanaian law system, it proceeds from that phrase, the Almighty, which is the recognition of a divine lawgiver, right? And in case to our audience, you don't know how peculiar that is, it's not it's actually a very different aspect of the rule of law system, because it is not really compulsory for any country to decide that a divine lawgiver gave the rules. Because historically, if you're looking at whether it's the Roman system, it was actually the emperor that was seen as the lawgiver. So the emperors were seen as gods, and like they were seen like the lawgivers. So we're seeing quite a different take on the issue, in which the country respects the fact that no, the law is not coming from the rule of man, but it's coming from the rule of law, which proceeds from a divine lawgiver. So that is very peculiar. And I think that is something which is special within certain countries, that be very interesting for us to note. Olivia, you wanted to pick up?
Not to interject you. Yeah, not to interject you. We have some jurists that brought about what law is. So we have the naturalist point of view, we have the positivist point of view. That is a whole school of thought that we have to go into another day. But to make mention of the natural law, when you made mention of the emperor rule, the natural law theorists or school of thoughts believe that the law came from a divine source. So that's why they believe that you don't have to posit the law for it to be law. Divinely, you shouldn't murder your friend. You shouldn't murder your loved one. You shouldn't murder anyone. Divinely, you're supposed to feed people. So the natural law dimension of law, that is a whole thing to go into. So I wanted to say, before it came to the emperor level, for people to know that now it's the Canaan law that comes from the emperor or whoever it is. It used to be from a divine source. They used to believe that it was from a supreme divine being.
So that means
I think we should have a day to go through jurisprudence of the law.
Talk about the other ones. You've spoken about the natural law, the
natural law. So we have the positive theory law, where they believe that for anything to be law, it has to be written down. So if, for example, the positivists will not recognize our customary laws, which are not written down or codified into a single document. They believe that for you to say that, okay, Peeman Atta did this, it should have been written down. Do you get it? So they don't believe the fact that they believe that whatever is law should be something that has been written down and then it's being applied to human. And another important discussion, or another important aspect of the positivists, is the fact that they believe that morality and law are separate. So they call it the separation thesis, where they believe that in writing the law, there wouldn't be any influence from the Bible. There wouldn't be any influence from any other thing. It's as it is. It's so pure. We have the Kelsen theory, where it believes that the law is so pure. It doesn't emanate from trying to say, oh, you have to be so affectionate towards your friend. It doesn't influence what you write down. So first of all, you just have to know that positivists believe that if something is not written down, it's not a law. And they also believe that you don't have to be so emotional about it. You don't have to have the morality aspect doesn't influence what you write down as the laws. I believe I've made that point clear. Yeah. Then we have realist school of thought. I told you it's a whole conversation that one day should bring it up so that we have it. So it's an interesting one. So we have the realist school of thought. The realist school of thought believe that if a judge is making the law, or if a judge is laws are made, there are judges who make the law. So you remember when I was talking about the sources of law, I made mention of the fact that when situations come to judges and then they look at the facts, they actually make some rules and everything. So, for example, if you go to your lawyer and your lawyer says, "Oh, so this is what happened, and this is what happened, and the woman did this, and this person did this," you will like you first of all probably check the codified laws, our constitution, and everything. Then check, oh, what has the court said on this thing? So we have recent cases on defamation. So if the court has said this thing on defamation, let's say I come and I insult your personality, the court says that if I do this, there's a ruling already. Someone has brought such a case to court. So the lawyer would then look at precedents, different rulings by the court on that same topic. For example, if Peeman Arthur is with a woman and then something happens, let's say there's a form of abuse or anything, you can imagine a female judge sitting on the case. So the realists believe that the female judge is going to really bring all the feminine side of her to talk about it, your abuse to that woman. It's going to influence. So the realists believe that the judge actually make the laws because they can't separate. They've been through the community, they've been through the society, know what is going on. They don't just strictly, or they don't just in a robotic way apply the laws that has been laid down by parliaments. Do you get it? So, for example, let's imagine a judge that has been robbed of her assets. Yeah, she has gone through robbery. You get it? And then you go to the law court and then there's this robbery. He might give a very deterrent sentence. You know, in sentencing a culprit, there's a range. So maybe if someone steals, the person is liable for an imprisonment, a term of imprisonment between 4 to 6 years or 4 to 10 years. Then you get the judge, someone stealing a goat. I think it happened recently. Someone stealing a goat and the judge will give you 10 years. So it's at play because it's a deterrent sentence. You can imagine it's a deterrent sentence, all right, but it could also another factor could be that the judge has experienced robbery and then now wants to send warning out to the robbers, thieves, that you know what, this thing is not going to be entertained in this country. So a whole lot, the realists believe that a whole lot is at play during the courtroom. The judge's personal view, opinion, experience, they all go into the judge's ruling. So you see, it's very interesting. The realist is an interesting school of thought for me myself. The Americans actually probably go through this school of thought, and it's actually emerged from them. The historical school of thought, they also believe that the law is peculiar to each and every society. They believe that law emanates, or to make good laws, you have to look at the history of the society that you're making the law for. So in your earlier introduction, you made a very bright comment that yes, the law is general, but because I am a student of Ghana, I'm going to probably be biased towards by using Ghanaian examples to explain this concept. So yeah, so in making laws, let's say if America has made a tax law system to guide their tax thing, you don't import the same thing into Ghana. So I'll still bring the LGBTQ plus issue which is at hand. If America passes it, the historical school of thought will now say, do we necessarily have to also pass it? Like, do we also necessarily have to condone it? Do you get it? Don't we have to look at our history as Ghanaians? Is this thing part of our history or our culture as Ghanaians? If it's part, then fine. If it's not part, then definitely it's not a law that we should bring to pass. So you see, initially when I spoke, I made mention of a law that is made should be purposeful. Do you get it? So if you are making a law for Ghana, it should be purposeful. You can't just go and say, oh, I went to America and they do this. You come to Ghana and then you bring the same law. As brilliant as it looks internationally, it won't suit our Ghanaian culture. Our Ghanaians will boycott it. It would create problems. So I think that's most of the reasons why we have laws that are not being implemented in our system. Because allow me to use our local language. it's not suiting with our cultural system. So in the historical school of law, basically, without mentioning the founding fathers, just to basically give an overview of it, believes that make laws that sit well with your society, make laws that sit well with your culture, make laws that you can see that, oh, from the history of your culture, this law is needed. It's going to be purposeful. So basically, I'll end here with the school of thought so that we have a whole lot of things I'm sure we can discuss. I'll end here and then we continue.
Oh, that was beautifully fleshed out. We've really learned a lot. And for the people that think they are scholars, right now we are being schooled to be scholars. So that's a beautiful exposition and explanation of the
So
various sort
to
of
make
thoughts.
a final point on that, if a judge makes or a judge proclaim something on an issue, definitely the judge is probably coming from one angle of this school of thought. There are a whole lot. We have the sociological and a whole lot. The judge is definitely coming at one angle. So as a law student or as a lawyer or something, a lover of the law, you criticize based on the school of thought the judge is coming from. Do you get it? So if the lawyer did this, you can see that, oh, this lawyer actually went strictly with the what is written down there. But I believe that no, we should rather look at the society. If you look at the society, this law is even not a good law. So that's how we do our criticisms. Criticisms. Do you get it? So the judges making it, they are definitely coming from one school of law. Either the judge is a positivist, a realist, and what have you.
Wow. So that means definitely there are several aspects and direction that the laws can take. And thank you, Olivia, for even stepping up to really show us the different aspect, because mostly we all assume like the laws are coming from just one direction, but you really shown us the different school of thoughts and the different ways by which decisions are influenced. And so we've been really blessed. And from the onset, you made mention of the natural law approach, in which there is the assumption that there's a divine lawmaker. And definitely for Christians, that seems to be something that we all do connect with. So definitely thank you, Olivia, for even giving us the gist of what the various directions that the laws can take. And sometimes we assume that they all come from one direction, but we've really seen here that they come from different directions. And so sometimes you may never know what is really influencing the decisions that are being made, except if you've understood the various directions. So we really thank you for even letting us understand. And from the onset, you made it clear that one school of thought believes that there's a divine lawgiver from the natural law aspects, and that seems to be the direction that most Christians will also come from. We want to now expand to the globe. Thank you for even letting us understand even specifically the Ghanaian law system works. And now we want to really understand how the international law system works in general, and how has biblical understanding really influenced the international rule of law system.
Okay, so yeah, we do have our constitution that guide as Ghanaians. But we do also give reverence to some international laws in our country. So I want to direct you to Article 75 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. It says the president may execute or cause to be executed treaties, agreements, or conventions in the name of Ghana. A treaty, agreement, or convention executed by or under the authority of the president shall be subject to ratification by A, Act of Parliament, or B, a resolution of Parliament supported by the vote of more than one half of all the members of the Parliament. So I just want to refer you to Article 75. I'm coming to briefly explain. So you see, sometimes we hear our president has gone to maybe this particular country for this particular program and has agreed or is a party to a certain law that has been passed by the let's say a combination of countries. So we have the EU, we have the UN, we have a whole lot. So if Ghana becomes a party of these international organizations, they draft laws that how do you call it, that has an effect on Ghanaians. Do you get it? So Article 75 shows us that when our president goes, he's there as an agent of Ghana to sign and then bind us to those international laws. So I'll start by saying that is how we are bound to those international laws. When it comes to parliament adopts it, they ratify it, and it becomes part of our laws. So one thing is, if you're a lawyer, then you even have an issue, you probably would want to check some international instruments to be sure that it's not it favors you, or it doesn't favor you. So international instruments or laws also have a playing field in our laws. So looking at how the Bible has influenced international laws, I would like to go on the tangent of the common law. If you remember, I made mention of the fact that Article 11 of the 1990 Constitution, common law is part of our sources of law in Ghana. So the common law are those things that we inherited whilst we were being colonized, the things, the kind of rules and regulations we've adopted as time passed by. So there's this part of, we have tort law of torts. It deals with tortious wrongs. It deals with all kinds of wrongs, and it's a civil action. It's a civil suit. I remember there's this case, Donoghue and Stevenson, where at a point in time, I would say that the judge went into the Bible to bring a standard. Interesting, right? The judge was like, okay, at this point, he went into the Bible and said that let's call it the neighbor's principle. The Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. So it's more of a manufacturer's liability. So if, say, a company makes a product, and then even though the company has made a product and has distributed it to various countries, how would we hold the company liable for any defects in the products? Do you get it? So I would, in my opinion, I feel like, okay, so there was no way to hold the company liable, because in a way he has done it and distributed it. So if you buy it from, let's say, shop A is the one who has sold it to you. Why then do you go all the way to the manufacturer? Then the court realized that no, the manufacturer should be held liable if the product is not effective. You get it? In doing so, he went straight into the Bible and then said that the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. So we even call it the neighbor's principle. And from that, we realized that a manufacturer will be liable if there is any defect in a product. So I will just make it as short as this. And then there's another way we've seen the Bible being influenced. So this law is used across in the common law countries. So it's one of the ways that the judge went into the Bible, or the Bible has influenced an aspect of the law. I hope you are not confused.
Yeah, I think that's definitely great. Can you add, Olivia, the way international law makes you know the value of a person? Because the Bible always talks about the value of a person. How the Bible's understanding of the value of a person helps in influencing international law, since international law has been influenced by the Bible in the aspect of the individuality of a person rather than the state.
Before I continue, there's one point I want to make clear. You remember when I talk about judges making laws? The judge might even make law, but at that time he's not thinking that I'm a realist, I'm a positivist, I'm a this. It's us learning and knowing the angle the judge is coming from. At that point, he doesn't even know that he's using this. He might not know that he's using the school of thought to make his ruling. Do you get it? So if you make mention of some communities or some countries that do not go into the Bible to pick what is up, I even sometimes think that even the ones that you think they are Christian communities, they just don't directly pick what is in the Bible and place it as laws, or the influence is not kind of a direct Bible influence. It could be an indirect Bible influence. In the end, you realize that after making all those laws, that you if someone sits behind and analyze everything, then you'll be like, oh, the Genesis is even from the Bible. Do you get it? The standard is from the Bible. There are so many laws that have been implemented, international laws, that in doing so, like you said, the value of a person was taken into consideration. And it's kind of, sometimes my law lecturer would say, sometimes it's not just common sense. You get it?
Historically, that was counterintuitive to common sense. The cultures around the world actually believed of their kings as gods, right? It wasn't common sense. I think most people in 2023 will look back and say it's common sense, but historically that has not been a common sense thing to people. A king could kill an individual.
So I will refer you to the Bible. For example, in the Old Testament, where it says that a woman commits adultery, the person should be stoned to death or something, right? Yes, our Jesus Christ came in the New Testament and said that if you think you don't want your wife again, divorce your wife, right? So there has been a form of evolution. Do you know our constitution is a living organism? So whatever new laws you are making, it should be consistent. The constitution is the supreme law. Every country's constitution is the supreme law. Do you get it? And the enactments, like I earlier mentioned, should be consistent with it. So, like you said, I get it that it had not been like that earlier. So what I was also trying to say was, let me bring an example in our law, an example of our evolution. Like you said, women and men were never on the same level. If you go to the court and says that as a woman you wanted, because of your contribution, you wanted you want a share in your husband's property. The court was saying that no, it is your duty to help your husband in a station of life. So women were literally assets. Do you get it? And you literally had no share in your husband's property. But it has evolved such that in our constitution right now, a woman's contribution is seen during the pendency of the marriage, is recognized, and then you do have an interest in the property that has been acquired. Okay, we do have. I remember I read a landlord case where the lawyer was arguing on behalf of the client that, listen, I gave you the land, okay, so if you are using it, I lease it to you. If you are using it, whatever fruit or mango tree that has grown on that land, I have the right to come there, to enter there anytime, to actually come and then pick up the fruits or whatever it is, because naturally it's growing naturally on my land that I gave to you. Do you get it? But it came to a point the court said no. At this juncture where the world is evolving, no one would allow for you to just enter without permission, and then take the proceeds of a naturally growing plant like maybe mango or anything from someone's land while the person is in possession. Do you get it? So I just wanted to point out the fact that in our people making these different laws, okay, like you said, you are right. They didn't even take into consideration that, oh, the Bible is influencing these aspects of us, our laws. Do you get it? So, like I said, there's this principle called the most favored nation principle, where in Ghana, if let's say for example a Ghanaian manufactures say watch, okay, and then we have a Nigerian who also manufactures watch, we are not going to say that we are going to prohibit the Nigerian's watch from being imported just because it's a Nigerian made watch. Do you get it? Or we are not going to say that a Nigerian has a business here, so we are taxing a Nigerian more than we will tax a Ghanaian. So these discriminatory things internationally has been accepted. But my point is that they didn't even know that it is coming from the root of it, or the genesis of it is from the Bible, because the Bible is saying love your neighbor as yourself. The Bible is admonishing you to treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. The Bible is admonishing you to value your individual. Do you get it? So what I'm trying to say is that these things have all been factored in international laws and even in our local law. Probably it wasn't directly taken. So I would say that it was an indirect Bible influence. And you did mention of the fact that sometimes society values or individual, where in what situation that the individual value outweighs the societal value, because something the utilitarian approach and the benefit approach. So for example, in people have been, if you've heard of any argument, people have been arguing that some of the laws that are being the fines that are or the imprisonments that are being given to certain petty crimes, it's just bringing a whole lot of, it's crowding the prisons. Do you get it? It's crowding the prisons, and then it's also, a prisoner is being taken care of by the country, right? So if you look at the benefits approach, we are not benefiting. We are just putting someone just stole a goat and you give the person 10 years imprisonment. And then the person is in prison and the country is feeding the person. The person can just, sometimes someone will tell you that, oh, in this case, the government should have just let the person work so that it will be beneficial to the society. So in sometimes making some rulings, deterrent situations like this, we look at it in the societal aspect. So, at this point, the society is important, such that we want to. I remember, let me just halt at this point and just go back to one situation where the court was trying to say that there was this it was an era where they were trying to prevent people from printing out fake currency. Do you get it? So in this situation, the individual has committed a crime by printing out fake currencies. The court will take into consideration the society more than the individual, because in this situation, the court is saying that there has been numerous caution against printing of fake currencies. So if that is the case, the societal value or the societal needs will outweigh that individual's own, and it will be a factor into the sentencing of the individual. So sometimes the benefit approach does come in, and then in doing that, the society the society value would outweigh that of the individual's value, or the individual's value would outweigh that of the societal value.
Wow. Going back and forth, several things being discussed, and we've really learned a lot. We've learned a lot about the international law. We've learned a lot about even how laws are drafted. We've learned a lot about even how the Ten Commandments has really influenced most of the laws, including aspects of murder, adultery, stealing, and all that. And Olivia, just before we roll on to one other topic, which is very important to me, what seems to be the difference between breaking a law and committing sin? It looks like sometimes we just combine the two, and it looks like we've committed the two already. Well, some people have tried committing all the two. So, what's the difference between breaking the law and committing sin?
Well, this particular question would really have my opinion coming in a lot, wouldn't it? So what is sin? As a Christian, what is sin? I think let's go to Jeremiah 17:9-10. Jeremiah 17:9-10. The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? I, the Lord, search the hearts and examine the mind, to reward each person according to their conduct, according to what their deeds deserve. Right? And then I will take us to Mark chapter 7, verse. Okay, let's start from the 20. He went on, what comes out of a person is what defiles him. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come: sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person, right? So, first of all, I made mention of the fact that when it comes to breaking a law, I've already explained law from the inception of our discussion, what it entails, and then the different school of thoughts, how they think that morality, some of them think morality is different from the law and everything. And we've come to see how some influences of how the Bible influences some man-made laws. I mean, the laws. So I think this is more of my opinion, because I see the fact that even with sin, God says that it emanates from us, right? It's what comes out of the person's heart, right? And then God condemns you because what comes out of you is impure, and that is what sin would be. Man, you told me it's a discussion, so at this point, have I gotten the sin right?
Yeah.
From your point of view.
So the breaking of God's law.
Yes. So to me, I feel like whatever is coming out of you, God looks at your intention, your heart, what fills a man's heart to condemn you or to say, yes, my daughter, you've sinned against me. Do you get it? So looking at it, I'm trying to link it to the laws that have been made. When you go to section 46 of our criminal acts, I'm using one example of a crime: murder. For most of the crimes, most of the criminal acts, for you to be liable to a criminal act, mostly we have something called the actus reus and the mens rea. The actus reus is the physical act. The mens rea is your intention. You would ask me, how would the court know the intention of a man is through certain series of events that of course will impute an intention to you or know your intention. So for example, when I say actus reus, I say that um it is the act. Let's say if I stab someone, the act is I've stabbed someone, the person is bleeding, or the person probably because of my stabbing has died. That is the actus reus. Do you get it? That's the physical component of it. But the court will not just look at that to just say that, oh, you've murdered someone or you've committed murder. They would go on to see whether you intended to commit murder.
Mm.
So it is from this angle that I think, in my opinion, acts and at looking at this circumstance, sinful a sin and then breaking the law seems to be on the same level.
Mm.
Because if God is not condemning you God is only condemning you after looking into your heart, and then there's a murder case. If the AG is not, the attorney general is not able to prove that you intended or you had an intention to murder a person, even though you stabbed the person has died. If it doesn't prove your intention beyond reasonable doubts, you might be acquitted. So
Mm.
looking at it, I'm being technical here right now. I'm being technical. Looking at it from this, weighing the two instances, I'll say then God is looking at our mens rea, our intent. So it stems from the same ideology. I don't know if you get me. It stems from the same ideology to me. So to me, in my opinion, which we can have a discussion about it and talk more about it to see if there's a disputing factor. In my opinion, it seems to be almost the same. So you can't just come and then say this person committed a sin without actually proving the mens rea. So there was this aspect where we call it the Yaniba case, where some group of people were actually using heroin, that drug. They were inhaling it, they were using it to do a whole lot of activities. Okay. And then the AG said, no, this thing is an illicit drug, and they were using it. But of course said that the people that were using it didn't even know that the drug has that kind of effect. They just thought it makes you powerful and everything. So because intention was not disputed, was not was not able to be made out, the court realized that they were not liable. Do you get it?
Mm.
So personally, if I go deeper and I use technicalities to analyze this, I would say that it's still from the same angle. It's on the same level. Sin and then breaking the law. I
Yeah.
would say it's on the same
And
level.
one important aspect to differentiate this will be the aspect where certain laws are not accounted for. So if you're looking at the general law, for example, certain laws may not seen as breaking the law, but may be seen as sin because they go beyond. Especially looking at Jesus' words, for instance, when it looks at a person and says, if you even lust after a person in your mind, that was an extreme form of showing the difference between what the natural could capture and what God could capture, which is beyond the intent itself. There's a level to which you can capture the intent. And
Yeah.
that's something which is within the specialization of God, knowing that, oh, in your mind, you even thought of sleeping with someone's wife. You are in court for this. And so there are
Mhm.
some aspects that sort of links together, and there are some aspects that only God can decipher and therefore provide. So Jesus really stretched out is the reason why we call him the perfection of the law, because there are some parts the laws that we have cannot really capture, and yet Jesus is able to account for all those aspects, and that is why he's sort of the completion of every law that you could think of, because there are some laws that are very difficult for even place your hands on it, and it's very debatable. For years people debate them whether they
For
should.
real. For real.
Yeah. So that sort of intelligence to really know whether something is right or wrong is sometimes beyond the natural level at which even a natural judge would be able to decide on that issue. So Olivia, thank you for letting us really know a lot. We've really been fed a lot and understanding the various types of laws, knowing where even we feel a dichotomy between the sin, and even the laws that we've drafted, making us understand the influence of the Bible even on the common law and various aspects. You can take us home with three important aspects, which I believe will be very important and relevant to our viewers. How does the law take up aspects such as murder, adultery, and even marriage itself? So maybe you can even add whatever you want to add. But definitely, this should be the aspects that I believe has a bit of commonality with biblical ideas and the biblical views on stuff. For instance, how murder is seen and solved in the Bible. We want to really see how there's either a similarity and a difference in between them.
Okay. So I think it would still, we've already discussed about the fact that when I was talking about the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not murder. And I've already said that our Criminal Act 29, has prohibited a whole lot of it, right? So our Criminal Act defines murder as a person who intentionally causes the death of another person by an unlawful harm, commits murder, unless the murder is reduced to manslaughter by reason of an extreme provocation or any other matter of partial excuse. So I think when David intentionally commanded his people to murder Uriah, right? There was an intentional act. Sorry, I'm so technical. So there was an intentional act, right? He knowingly asked someone to do such a thing. So our criminal also imputes intention. We want to say that, oh, even though I stabbed party A, probably it was due to just fight and I stabbed the person. If during that moment an intention of not consciously trying to say that I wanted to murder the person, the law is saying that it can be reduced to manslaughter. Manslaughter is different from murder. Do you get it? So I just want to say that with regards to murder, sorry, the law, our criminal acts has indeed prohibited it. And internationally, I don't think anyone goes away with murder. To the extent that if sometimes you do you murder someone, you are a Ghanaian, but you can be held liable in US.
Oh,
Do you
wow.
get it? So murder is such a very high profile this thing. And then they said you are liable to suffer death. That's your punishment. You are liable to suffer death. So if you see in the Bible, if you look at the Bible, what are instances where when Abel and Cain, right? When Cain murdered Abel, what was the punishment?
Yeah, the
What was
punishment
the
was that
punishment for Abel?
Cain was made to wander, and then surely anybody could kill him, but then the God put up a symbol on him that whenever anybody touches his life, that person would pay several times. Yeah, there was a
Right.
though in Leviticus chapter 24, verse 17, it reads that anyone who takes the life of a human being is to be put to death. So surely this was the view within the Jewish system of what happens in case you take somebody's life. And that I think has a similarity with how the law that we currently have been devised in itself.
So that's an example of it. How you see, no one goes scot-free. You don't go scot-free for taking someone's life. You don't go scot-free.
Yeah. But what about aspects such as, surely murder seems to be a bit obvious in its response. Even when you look in your heart and you feel like somebody has murdered something, you don't really need the 10 Commandments to really tell you that this thing needs to be sorted out quickly. But some aspects such as what happens to a person when a person steals something. Sometimes people are lynched, people are beaten to death. How does the law approach it in this way? Because surely in the old times you could be stoned to death for stealing, right? In biblical times you could be stoned to death for stealing. How does our laws approach also that aspect in this way?
Okay, so when it comes to stealing, it's also a criminal offense. Our laws prohibit stealing. So if you do steal, you are going to be punished for it. So I just want to say that in all brackets, all these are criminal offenses that the laws of Ghana have given recognition to and is prohibited. And anyone who is liable to such an offense will be duly punished by incarceration, a term of imprisonment.
Oh,
that's for stealing. Rape, all these things are all criminal offenses that the law abhors and then is going to make you liable for it.
wow. That's quite interesting. So these aspects all have a bit of commonalities we sense here, whether you're reading your Bible or you're just studying the law as an aspect. But when it comes to
Yeah, sure.
adultery, it seems to be a very tricky concept. Adultery and divorce. I don't know
Yeah.
people that think about these issues. How do they really go about it, and what is their approach in this kind of situation?
So you see, and just to stealing is a second degree felony. It's a very serious crime too. So we should desist from stealing. We should desist from stealing. When you dishonestly appropriate someone's thing, and then there's the permission of the owner is not sought, is stealing. So back to the adultery. With law, sometimes the morality aspects or the biblical aspects sometimes converge, sometimes too they are on their separate way. So like you say fornication, if someone is in the room fornicating, it doesn't have any effect on the other person. So most of our criminal activities, you could see that murder, um you've caused another person's life to be taken away, right? Stealing, you've brought about a discomfort to another person. Rape, it has an effect on another person and the likes of them. So you could see that whatever you do that it's personally to you, or it's kind of an internal thing, so far as it doesn't have an effect on the other person, the law doesn't normally come to interject with your area, your private matters. So that, I think that's the angle where the LGBTQ is coming from, that if they are doing it in their private room, what has the law got to do with it? Do you get it?
Wow.
So yes, so that is one angle. So that's other people are coming from. So if we talk about adultery, even the Bible said that if your wife commits adultery, you can divorce your wife, or you could take her back if you love her, right? So
Yeah.
it's giving you those two options. So adultery is not really it's not a criminal offense, but it's one grounds for divorce. So we have the Matrimonial Causes Act in Ghana that talks about divorce. So you can it could be one grounds that the one partner can stand on, that because of such and such acts, because of this adulterous nature of my partner, one of the grounds that I could stand on to say I want to divorce my partner. So the law just gives you that room to either ignore it, or if you want to divorce your partner, it could be one of the possible grounds you can appeal to the courts to grant you your divorce.
Wow. And I think that shows the a bit of the aspects in which Jesus Christ also looks back, and looking at the Jewish beliefs, takes a stance on the fact that you people for no reason sort of just divorce people by heart. Okay. And he then begins to then provide, reduce all the reasons why you could divorce. So probably in the laws that we have, you could sort of have for any reason, take up any reason per se, and then sort of divorce. But in the biblical worldview, there seems to be a very extreme limitation to what you should stand on to divorce. And surely when it comes to even sexual acts and all that, cheating on your husband or wife, that could be the basic on which you divorce. Even that one, you have to, some people still choose not to. So there are definitely a bit of similarities in the way the laws are constructed within our country system, and even looking at the aspects of biblical laws. I feel Jesus Christ really went and really streamlined each and everything, and then came out with the best option, because Bible says that God does not like divorce. And so he has to provide, you have to really give him a very, 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 very good reason why you want to sign out on the deal you just signed in. So for those who marry and just want to just divorce, it's not so easy. It's not so easy within the
Yeah,
Christian
the
context.
court is actually not so inclined to just break up married couples like that. Sometimes they refer it to arbitration, they send it to their homes and
Wow.
everything. So it's not just a happy place to just divorce couples like that. But
Wow.
anyway, they end up divorcing.
So wow. Either way, it is not so easy to divorce. So when you are signing your deal, please know
No,
what
not
you're
at
getting
all.
yourself into. Wow. Thanks, Olivia, for letting us know that. So we just ask the last question, and then we'll be done. And that is, under what basis is someone defined as married? Because even biblically, there's that procedure and that definition of what marriage is. But how does our law interpret what is and is not marriage? And what do you want to just surprise us with on that?
Surprise. So because he said surprise, I wanted to just go straight to the surprise. So, marriage with the normal definition is a union between a man and a woman, and in Ghana specifically, it's man and woman. So, we recognize your union, you do your customary marriage, which is recognized by the courts, and then you do your marriage by ordinance. Okay, so there are, if you go customarily and then if you go by the marriage of by ordinance, there are limitations to both. So if you marry someone customarily, you're entitled to, you can marry more. The law doesn't prohibit you from doing such. But immediately you decide that you want to go by ordinance, you're entitled to marry just one person. So you can't, bigamy is a crime. Okay, you can't marry if you've registered your marriage under the ordinance. You can't go ahead and take, you commit a crime by doing so.
Wow.
And then one interesting thing is, I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to bring up some within the biblical context here, and there's something I
Sure,
wanted
sure.
to read in Leviticus chapter 18 verse 18. It said, neither shall thou take a wife to her sister to vex her, to uncover her nakedness besides the other in a lifetime. So it means that after you're married, you don't have to add the person's sister to on top of your stack, and the Bible prevents that kind of marriage. I don't know whether the laws that we have also have that take on that subject.
Yeah, incest is a crime.
Oh,
Incest is,
I didn't know that
yeah,
incest is a crime. I thought
yeah,
it
it's a crime.
wasn't liked, but I don't think it was like a crime. That's very
Okay.
interesting.
So incest is a crime. Section 105 of our criminal acts prohibits incest. So if you're a male and you're not less than 16 years and you have carnal knowledge with a female who is your granddaughter, your daughter, your sister, you've committed incest. It's a criminal offense, and then it's 3 years and not more than 25 years imprisonment. So you should take
Oh,
caution with
that's a
that.
lot.
If you're a female, yeah, if between 3 years and then 25 years. If you're a female too and you have carnal knowledge with your grandson, your brother, your grandfather, your father, it's incest. So incest is a crime. You should check out section 105 of our Criminals Act 29.
Wow. Oh, that's very, very interesting. And it's quite a surprise. I think she really put up a surprise on us today. I didn't even know that. I know like people disagree with incest and all that, but I didn't know it was a very codified thing in the laws that we have here. So definitely wherever country that you are in, there seems to be a bit of a commonality between the laws that we have in the Bible and even the way your laws are drafted. So it's been very nice to have Olivia explain it to her. I told you she's the best in it, and she has really impressed us all with her amazing knowledge and even her simplicity in explaining all these complex things to us. So we've really had a great discussion. Olivia, I think we really had one, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. I've also learned from the host myself. I was so impressed with your history side. It was so marvelous. I was
My
just
my
learning and taking tips.
I think my history my history cannot really reach your law level. So please. Okay, so we really
No,
had a
it's an
great
addition.
time.
You see that the law is learning everything, knowing almost everything, and how you sit it into the law. So it was great learning from you as well.
Wow. We really had a great discussion, and we thank you all for even coming to join us on this podcast. This is Speaking of God podcast, where we aim to change the narrative and bring God back into the conversation. And today, we've really seen the commonality between even the laws and the justice systems that we have, and even the take on the Bible and how it has really influenced this stuff. And we thank God for the guest that has really helped us in fleshing it out. And hopefully we'll be speaking to amazing guests on the next bus that we take. We really had a great service here on this bus that Olivia has graced us with. And we'll be catching up on many amazing guests on the way. Stick with us and we really have a great time. We'll be taking up on the season 1 of this podcast. It's going to be a great time. I'm excited. I know you're excited. So this Speaking of God podcast, my name is Peeman. Thank you for joining the discussion. Have a great time. Bye.